Greetings and felicitations, YouTube. Jarl of the Appian Way here. I wanted to make a video to talk about what I feel are the best units for each faction for multiplayer. Maybe not the best units. How about I should describe this as the units that you should be taking every time, regardless of who your opponent is. This is a unit that I always see myself picking for that faction, no matter what, okay? So this isn't necessarily what's the best unit for each faction, but like what's the unit that has the most value to me when I'm playing multiplayer, okay? And I'm going to start, I'm going to go down the list, just each faction one after another until we cover all 10. I'm going to start with Dardania, and for Dardania, the unit I see myself picking every time is a very, very straightforward unit, and that is the Dardanian mob. You can take as many of them as you like. It's the cheapest unit in the game at 200, and it does a very simple job, and it does it very well. And that job is distraction and ammunition catching. They have a shield block chance of 35%, and that's not great. They only have 15 armor. That's not great. But I find my opponents love shooting Dardanian mob with arrows and with slings, and it's a waste. But also, it's funny, because if they don't do that, if they don't kill the Dardanian mob, then the Dardanian mob is just going to get into the backfield and catch your Achaean slingers. The one thing you never want to see happen to your skirmishing line is to see it get bogged down into melee combat with throwaway junk trash units that the Dardanian player doesn't care what happens to, because they're expendable. They are hit point sponges at 9,000 HP in 120 man units that nobody cares if they die. They do get a bonus versus large because they are a spear unit. Their damage is only 53. Their bonus versus large is only 5 points, so that is only going to increase their damage if they're fighting a large target to 65 and a half. It's not great, and not great at all, but it's amazing just how much of your opponents you can completely surround and collapse on top of and not even give them a chance to use their skirmishers or to distract their forces or to pin down troops, while your more valuable forces, like your Dardanian defenders or your fearless swordsmen or your heavy Trojan chariots or even your archer chariots, are getting a ton of other kills elsewhere. So yeah, that's my choice for Dardania, and that would be the Dardanian mob, cheapest unit in the game, and a fantastic distraction force slash speedy flanker that can tie down enemy skirmishers. Tie down is the name of the game here. You just throw them away, and they'll work for as long as they can with their paltry 45 morale to just throw their lives away and add bodies to the problem. I don't know how better else to say it than that. So next I'm looking at Hector of Troy, and the one unit that I always take if I'm playing with Hector has got to be Hector's Chosen. This is it's an expensive unit. It is one of the most expensive units in the game, and for a pretty good reason. This is a medium weight class sword and shield infantry that pretty much kills everything. It's got 65% missile block chance, 75 armor, 70 morale, so he's going to stay with Hector until the very end. 42 speed. This used to be like 50 speed. This used to be nuts. It used to outrun almost everything on foot for being as almost unkillable as it is. We've got 40 melee attack, 55 melee defense, fantastic, 160 weapon damage, which is top end for really good swords. 26 charge bonus, immune to flanking, and their flanking attack is also improved. And they encourage nearby units just by existing there. You put 2 of these on either end of your main battle line, and you can pretty much rest assured that your flank is secure. There's not too much else to say about them other than that they are just really good, and they almost always perform well. The only thing that I might say that they're going to be particularly weak to would be consistent chariot charges, or even cavalry, just catching them off guard and running them down. Another good strategy to try and deal with Hector's Chosen is to try and outflank them with skirmish units. Get some missiles hitting them in the side or in the rear, because their shield won't block them at all. 75 armor. If you can get a unit of javelins behind them, like a jav chariot or a javelin cavalry unit, centaur scouts, they could peel off a lot of health from the Hector's Chosen, and then maybe a couple quick cycle charges. That's how you beat them. How you use them, honestly, they're a fire and forget missile. I put them on the sides of my lines and they will hold it. I'll have them outflank my enemy's position if I can, but frankly, they carve through the enemy. Oh yeah, the only other thing I should say about Hector's Chosen, they're also good at killing heroes. They kill what you tell them to kill, and they almost always kill it. Just don't put them to solo a chariot. That won't end well for them. All right, next up, Hippolyta. For me, this is actually a pretty easy pick. You might think that it's going to be like a missile or cavalry chariot of some sort. And while they do get them, and they also get a heavy chariot option, my selection is actually going to be the Aristobacoi. Now, the reason why I'm picking the Aristobacoi is because this is the only 160 damage infantry unit in the entire Amazonian roster. 60 melee defense, 160 damage. Honestly, this is like a Diet Coke version of the of Hector's Chosen. They're a lot slower at 28. They're a heavy weight class with 85 armor, missile block chance 75. They encourage their troops nearby, just like Hector's Chosen do. They have this constant buff called To the Last. I say constant because that is technically what it says there, duration quote constant. But what it does is when they lose half of their hit points, they gain 10 melee attack and 10 melee defense, making their melee defense a 70 after they've dropped down to 4,500 hit points. 70 melee defense, 85 armor, 75% missile block chance. And they're still swinging for 160 damage. Charge bonus is kind of meh. But these women are really good. They really are. The tagline for them is, "These noble women spent their youths testing their mettle against the beasts of the wilderness." Cool. Yeah, they're a really, really solid unit. Next, we have Ithaka. I love Ithaka. Fantastic faction, a lot of utility all around. They can do some pretty fantastic things. They have a lot of really good units to talk about. They have plenty of javelins that are just really, really fun to use. They have two flavors of chav chariots. They also get a Cyclops. There's a very, very good selection of units to pick from. But if I were to pick one unit that I use every time, no matter what, it's the Warriors of Ithaka. The Warriors of Ithaka are a fantastic unit. Oh man. your enemy doesn't know that they're there because they have stock. They can Vanguard deploy. They can hide in scrubs and forests, so you can put them into your enemy's flanks right next to their deployment zone, and they'll never even know they're there. And they can hold their own with 160 weapon damage, 47 melee defense, 42 melee attack, and they throw 4 javelins at 31 damage, 20 points of which are armor piercing. It's a medium infantry, but it comes with 10,000 hit points. It's just, honestly, this is your mainline infantry unit, and you could put it anywhere on the battlefield, and your opponent won't know it's there until they get really close. And by the time that they see them, it's usually too late. Next on the list is Lycia. With Lycia, there are several units that I really appreciate, not least of which is the renowned Khopesh fighter. This is your mainline infantry for sure every time, but while I do take them every time, there's a unit that I like more, and I guaranteed pick every time. And that unit is the Lysian Winged Chariot. This unit is the cheapest chariot in the game at 630. It is firewall moving with horseback sharpshooting, so it has a 360-degree arc, and it can shoot while it's on the move. It is a chariot first and an archer second. Its damage is still 84 with a bonus versus large of 10. It's a quick charger. It's I think like the second fastest unit in the game with a speed of 105. This thing can run down cavalry in many instances and deal a ton of damage. I once threw a 1600 point Fury at a winged Lycian chariot, thinking that the Fury with its bonus versus large would beat the Lycian winged chariots. And yeah, it did. But the Lycian winged chariots took more than about 90% of the Fury's health. That's a 1,000 point difference, and the Lycian winged chariot tore it apart. The missile damage is also really good at 49 point damage, only 5 armor piercing, however. So, and there's only the 9 archers, so this isn't really an archer unit, but the damage is nothing to be ashamed of either. If you're able to keep one of these units into the late game, it can pay dividends because of that ammo and because of its speed. You can bait out a lot of ranged fire from your opponents by shooting at it. And if you lose the 2 that you could bring, what if you lost out on 12,600 points? That's it. They consistently pay for themselves. And when they don't, that's okay. You haven't lost a lot. Next on the list is Mycenae. Now, this one's hard to pick because, and the Creative Assembly devs for this game have come out and said this as well, that Mycenae is a jack of all trades but a master of none. They have fantastic heavy armored units and chargers. They've got really good armored swordsmen, spearmen. I'm not going to pass judgment on currently because they are bugged. Club warriors are a fun unit as well. They have a decent selection of light units, including young spears for catching enemy ammunition. They get archer heroes. They have an assortment of slings, javelins, and I think one of the best archer units in the game, those of Mycenae. Heavy chariots, Minotaur, and Spartoi. I think ultimately, though, the unit that I take every time, no matter what, is the Club Warrior. The one thing Mycenae doesn't have in its melee line are javelins, with one exception: the Club Warrior. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the shortcomings of the Club Warrior. It doesn't have the healing over time ability that the Mycenaean roster comes with. This battlefield healing ability is really cool. They replenish hit points when outside of combat, so you can recuperate yourself for a second round. The Club Warriors don't have that, unfortunately. What they do have going for them is those 2 javelins, a speed of 48, but a sword damage of 110 for a unit that only costs 750 to come to a battle with 2 javelins for 34 missile damage and 110 sword damage with a melee attack of 42 and a speed of 48. What you have here is a very good flanking unit. It is it's good for chasing down almost every skirmisher in the game. And it comes in a very loose formation, very kind of broken up, so you can actually use them to bait out enemy missile fire as well, but you don't want to too long because of their very low armor and lack of a shield. They can firewall on the move with their javelins, so they charge in and throw their javelins, and they get a bonus to their flanking attacks. It's a valuable unit, and I often see them winning battles that I don't expect that they should. I had a pair of these go up against a Dardanian defender, not a Dardanian defender. I'm sorry, a Trojan defender, and win. I've used them to kill horsewomen. They're quick. They get the job done. Next on our list is Paris of Troy, and Paris is very, very well known for having brought some of the best archer units in the game. People love talking about Trojan princes. Only 45 men per unit, but they do have a nice 160 damage swords and 70 armor. But unfortunately, that melee defense and melee attack don't make them too, and their low numbers don't make them too reliable in melee. It's their missile damage of 77 with 18 armor piercing damage that really kind of makes the point. They can also shoot while moving, even though that's only in a forward arc. So I mean, you're not really going to have too many options to use that, because you're not trying to charge them forward and shoot at the same time. But frankly, I that's not even the unit that I take every time. The unit I take every time is the Cyclops. I know that's a cop-out. If I'm being serious, though, the unit that I take every time that I play with Paris of Troy has to be the renowned Phrygian Axeman. Champions of Troy are very solid, very good in comparison. But what the Phrygian Axemen bring that the Champions of Troy don't have is, quite frankly, hit points. They are 9,000 hit point sponge. They have 70 armor, 55% missile block chance. Their axes get a bonus versus swordsmen and spearmen. You don't often see a bonus versus spearmen of 10 points. Their weapon damage is only 106, but it comes with 22 armor piercing. This is your mainline infantry. I'm of the opinion of, I don't really like the heavy Trojan spearmen right now because they're currently bugged. Honestly, there's not a lot of things I like about the Paris roster. Renowned Phrygian Axemen are an okay unit. You're probably also going to be taking Champions of Troy. You're probably also going to be taking a Cyclops. They have a really good chariot too, and the Trojan Noble Chariot's problem with that chariot is that it's very expensive at $1350. So I'm just saying the unit that I see myself picking every time is the renowned Phrygian Axeman, and that's mostly out of the fact that there's just not a lot of other units that I reliably take. In the Penthesilea roster, it's hard to say that there's a unit that I've picked every single time. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to have to say it's the Daughters of Ares. Penthesilea also has some interesting units in the cavalry. The Hippopokoi are really good. The Furies are a lot of fun, if just a little bit too squishy for my tastes. They have a Javelin Chariot. They have some solid skirmishers all the way down the line, including Themyscira's Chosen, with 144 melee damage and discouraging javelins. They also come with Furies who have discouraging javelins. Their cavalry their Furies cause fear, but the unit I'm going to say is the Daughters of Ares. They're a fear-causing flanking unit, costs 1,400, pretty expensive, only 35 armor. No, wait, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the Furies there. No, wait, I was right, only 35 armor and no shields, so they are very squishy. They can take a lot of they're weak to skirmishing fire in particular. They got a 44 charge bonus, 125 melee damage, with a bonus versus spearmen of 15 and armor piercing value of 27. So with that bonus versus spearmen, that would mean their total damage is actually going to be 65 more points. Did I count that right? No, 45 more points. I'm sorry. So that would actually bring up their total damage to 170. That's really phenomenal. 63 melee attack is phenomenal. 44 melee defense is really not bad. And their speed of 55 is crazy. So you want to use the Daughters of Ares to try and get around the flanks of your enemies and attack the enemy spearmen in particular. But the 125 weapon damage isn't bad otherwise. The problem, though, with the Penthesilea roster is that you don't really have anything to hold the main line while your Daughters of Ares get around the sides. They might support Cornites or Oathsworn, but the main line just doesn't hold long enough, and there is no heavy armor infantry for the Penthesilea roster. The unit I see myself picking almost every time with Phthia is the Heavy Swordsman. Currently, the Renowned Phthian Spears are better than the Heavy Swordsman, but only because of the spear stagger bug. So I'm not going to count the Renowned Phthian Spears, because once that bug is removed, there will be no reason to pick Renowned Phthian Spears over Heavy Swordsman. That said, yes, there's Myrmidon Swordsmen, you have Myrmidon Spear Fighters, Champions of Phthia, Achilles. These are also units that you will see almost every single time, but they are limited. The Heavy Swordsmen are not limited. Heavy Swordsman comes with 90 armor, a 65% missile block chance, 70 morale. It comes with 52 melee defense, 125 sword damage across 10 seconds. 2 javelins for 19 damage with 11 points of armor piercing, and has an improved flanking defense. So this is a very, very solid mainline infantry unit. Its damage is not as good as other top-tier sword infantry units in the game, but it comes with 12,600 hit points, 90 men per model. It's a really solid pick, and I see myself taking it every single time because of what it can do on the Phthian main line. Last and certainly not least is going to be Sparta, and for Sparta, it's going to be a pretty obvious pick, I would think. Sparta comes with a lot of really solid, nice, cheap infantry. One of the best mid-tier swords in the game with Laconian Swordsmen. Really excellent chargers. A very good axe and shield unit called the Heroic Axe Warriors. A nice selection of slingers and archers, chariots. It even comes with a Cyclops, but the unit that I pick every single time I am playing as Sparta is the light spear runner. When it comes to that flanking spearman force that I've been ranting and raving about for weeks now, the light spear runners are king. Their shield block chances of 45%, which isn't bad for their cost. Their armor is only 35. This is a light spear unit infantry anyway, its speed is 55, and it goes even faster if you put their shield on their back for their two-handed melee ability. Morale of 65 is fantastic. Their melee attack is only 36. Their melee defense is 54. For being an 800 fund light infantry unit, a 54 melee defense is really good. Damage is only 74, but it does come with bonus versus large, swords, and axes. The bonus versus large is 10 points. The sword and axe bonus is only 8 points. So if you get lucky enough to catch a sword unit in the with these guys, and that'll happen rather regularly considering their speed is 55, their damage is actually going to be increased by almost 11 or 12 points. So that's going to bring their damage up to 85, 87, give or take. Not a massive difference, but a nice little cherry on top of what they already do. They also bring 4 26 damage javelins at a range of 95, which actually outranges a lot of the infantry melee infantry javelin units in the game. Damage is good too, with 11 armor piercing damage. On top of that, they also have an improved flanking defense. They're very good at attacking the flanks already, and they can also stalk, so you can easily outflank your enemy with these guys. They'll never even know they're there, and before they realize what's happening, these light spear runners are on top of the enemy skirmishers and dealing a ton of damage. Really, really high value unit that can get to places where it doesn't belong and then wreak havoc as a result. So that's the list. All 10 factions. Can only display 10 on the screen at a time, of course, but this is it. These are the ones. Let me know what units you take every time. Where do you disagree with me? I'm always willing to have a conversation about these kinds of things. Where do you think I made a mistake? As I highlight the renowned Kopesh fighters. Where do you think it's hard to pick one unit in particular? I hope you enjoyed this. This took me a long time to record. It's probably going to take me even longer to edit. I'd love to get your feedback. And as always, I greatly enjoy making content for you all, and I'm very appreciative for all of the support you've given me recently. Please check out another video of mine if you're new here, or if you're a long-time viewer and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. The channel is undergoing a lot of growth right now, and it's been very rewarding for me, and I hope you'll stick around. Anyway, ta-ta, I love you all, and I'll see you guys in the next video.